Okay. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us. So people are still joining, so we're going to start in a couple of minutes, just so we can make through, but we'll just wait a few more minutes just to see if anyone else will join us live. Okay, I'll give it 30-ish more seconds. Okay, so we'll get started now, just so we have kind of enough time to make it through the whole workshop. So, hi everyone, I'm Amy, one of the coaches at Motus. So we're going to make a start now, but before we do, I'll just run through some kind of general housekeeping, just so we can make sure everyone gets kind of the most out of the training possible today. So firstly, can you all type yes or no in the chat box and let us know if the sound's okay? So if you're hearing us okay, just give me a yes, no. Yes. Okay, yep, that's good. Okay, so thank you. And just to let you know, we are recording the session today, as quite a number of people have kind of were unable to join us live, and we're going to send them out a recording. So you can also request a copy of the recording by emailing us afterwards if you would like one. So that you can get the most out of the training I'm going to deliver today, I'd also politely suggest that we can all switch off our phones, or at least any notifications, just so you don't have anything popping up on screen or on your phone, so you don't miss out on anything. And you can either have your cameras on or you can have your cameras off. It's entirely up to you. So before I hand you over to Darren, this training will work best if we can get your input too. And in fact, it's really essential kind of for this session. So please do respond in the chat with any questions we pose. So if you are on a computer, the chat box should be at the bottom of the screen. And as you've all said yes to the sound, hopefully you've all found the chat box for now. And we're monitoring this chat kind of all the time. So if you have any questions between us, we'll make sure they get answers. And we'll also allow some specific time for Q&A at the end. So if you have any questions on today's subject or the content, then, or just on general kind of health and well-being, there'll be an opportunity to ask those questions then. So yeah, and also we'll probably just request for now for everyone to have their microphones muted, just so we don't have any sound interference in case I'm playing back or anything. So yeah, so I'll hand over to Darren now.
Thank you, Amy. It's always a big relief when all the technology works and everyone can hear and see as we want. So yeah, good afternoon, and to all of you who are here with us live, and hello to everybody if you're watching the recording, whatever time of day it is. I'm just going to introduce myself very, very quickly to those of you that don't know me. So I'm Darren, founder and MD of Motus, and we are a health and lifestyle coaching company. We work with people and organisations who are working towards changing their lifestyles so they can lead healthier, happier, and more fulfilling lives. And actually, one of the most important areas that we work on with our clients is about how we can use our physical health to help people feel less stressed and build stronger mindsets so that they can be at their best in both their personal lives and their professional lives. And that is exactly what we're going to give you an insight into today. So the overall objective for people inside of our main coaching program, M12, is about defining and creating the healthiest version of themselves. So if any of that, or reducing stress or improving your mental health, resonates with you, then you're in the right place today, and we're really glad that you've joined us. We will later in the session also be giving you an opportunity to book a free strategy call with one of our team. And on that call, it's our job to find out enough about you and what you personally need in terms of your health and well-being, so that by the end of that call, we can recommend one specific and personalized thing that you can do, you can put into action right away, that's actually going to make a big impact for your health and well-being. It will also be an opportunity for you to find out a bit more about our 30-day coaching program. It's just under £200, and it's how most people start their journey with us towards creating the healthiest version of themselves. So there's no hard sell. I will just simply tell you how you can book if you would like to, and that's it. Right, last thing from me before we get going into the main content for today, I'd just like to reiterate what Amy said, and that's about getting involved in the chat. I'm going to be posing quite a lot of questions to you today, so it will be most benefit to you, not only to think about your answers kind of to yourselves, but also to share them with the rest of us to help the flow of the session, and so that we can respond and tailor the session accordingly, so that we can all get as much of out of the session as possible. Okay, let's get the show on the road and let's get started. So as you know, the title of the training today, as you can see on the screen, is how to reduce stress, improve mental health with these 3 fundamentals. Stress is a massive topic, and again, so that we can make sure you get what you need today, I'd like to start by asking you, what was the main reason that you registered for this workshop today, and what would you like to get from it? So just type in the chat for me so that we know. Someone's got to be first, come on. Tips on remaining positive. Too much stress. Well, I hope we don't give you too much stress today, Karen. Relieve stress to sleep better. Very stressful job at the moment and need to deal with things better. Brilliant, thank you. Well, we will make absolutely sure that we cover these things, whether it's in the main part of the session or whether it's in the Q&A at the end. We're taking notes on this, so we'll make sure that every one of those things gets covered today for you. Right, so next up, we're going to do a little bit of a stress test. So what I'm going to need to the following questions is a yes or a no in the chat. Simple as that. Right, here we go. First one. Who is right now or very regularly gets stressed? Yes, yes, yes. Quite a lot of yeses coming in. Okay, next question. Whoever feels that they've got too much to do and not enough time? Nodding doesn't go in the box, Holly. Yes, yes, yes. Too much time. Wow, can I have some? Next question. Who finds that when they're stressed, it can affect their mood? Just a yes or no. Yes, 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 really. A few more people joining now, that's brilliant. Okay, who finds that they're less patient when they're stressed? Yes, 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 yes. Who makes different choices when it comes to their nutrition when they feel stressed? Who finds stress saps their energy? Chocolate. No, yes, yes, mainly yes is still. Who finds stress affects their sleep? I think someone mentioned this already. have to do a workout. Great idea, Michelle. Who has difficulty switching off? Yes or no again? Just got a couple more. Yes, with an exclamation mark, Rebecca. Right, last one of these then. Who finds that stress sometimes affects their relationships with their partner, with their family, or close friends? Yes, rarely. Okay, brilliant. Well, thank you very much for contributing. There will be some more questions on the way. I think that's it for the time. Oh no, we have got some more. I think that's fairly conclusive, isn't it? Really, lots of yeses, the odd rarely or maybe. Stress is a pretty major issue, and it affects every area of life. And I think sometimes the first step is kind of recognizing the signs that we're stressed, because they can be a bit different for different people. In fact, sometimes they can be polar opposites. Some people get really loud and shouty. Some people go very, very quiet and withdrawn. We sometimes play this little thing called stress response bingo in some of the workshops that we do, which you can see on the screen in front of you now. Anyone recognize any of those symptoms, if you like, of stress? Pop in the chat whichever one jumps out at you. Which one's the main one for you? Anger, moody. I think mine's probably wired. Quiet? No, it's lies. It's lies. Okay, right. Next question for you then. So this time I need a score out of 10, and 0 is being so relaxed that you're horizontal, and 10 is being so stressed that you're completely at the end of your tether and you're tearing your hair out, which you can see I've already done. Thinking about the last month, how would you rate your stress levels? 0 to 10. So a few 8s coming in. Oh, 8 seems popular today. Eights around, pretty high. Okay, next question. So thinking about the score that you've just either given us in the chat or you've thought about in your head for your stress levels over the last month, how do you rate your ability to cope and deal with that level of stress? So here, 0 would be that you're not coping at all. It's the most stressful period of your life and it's having a huge impact in every area, physically and mentally. And then 10 would be, oh, everything's fine, it's 100% under control all of the time. Two, four, four. Right, okay, well, thank you again, everybody. What we're going to try and do then is give you some strategies and some things that you can do to move those numbers in the opposite direction. It might not work immediately today in the next few minutes, but I can promise you that if you start to apply them over the next few weeks, then you'll certainly be able to do that. Okay, right. And this is my final question for a little while before we dive into what we can actually do about this and what we can do to help. And here's the question. So what in particular is it that gets you stressed? So put this in the chat again. Doesn't matter how big or how small, anything goes. Work, capital letters. We usually get some really interesting ones when we ask this question. Unhealthy lifestyle, trying to do everything at the same time. Okay, any more? Myself, wow. the washing up. This is serious. Feeling overwhelmed by everything going on and unable to change it. Husband. It's in the gym. Brilliant. Okay. Yeah, the reality is there might be one thing that immediately we go towards and we think, right, that's the thing that stresses me out. But there's going to be a big list, aren't there? There's going to be lots and lots and lots of things that are causing a stress response in some way. And in fact, and this really isn't particularly part of the workshop today, it wasn't meant to be. Sometimes I think that actually just identifying these things and writing them down and deliberately trying to come up with a really big list can be really helpful on its own to manage stress in the moment. Because what it does is it will highlight to us, actually, some of those things, are they really that important? Or are we worrying about something that we can't control, as frustrating as it is? So that can be very helpful just on its own, but that was a slight aside for today. That process of reviewing and reflecting a worry journal, that's a great idea, great idea. That process of reflecting and reviewing is we actually have a system for doing that within M12, which is our flagship coaching program. And people definitely report that that helps them feel less stressed on a week-to-week basis. Right then, so we know everybody's feeling stressed. We know some of the things that are making us feel stressed. And at the moment, we're not so sure about our ability to deal with them. We're not feeling so resilient. So we need to move on to how we can manage stress a bit better. And if we can learn to do that, then this in turn will help us have better physical and mental health, both in the short term, in a few weeks, a few days even, but more importantly in the mid to long term. And the first thing in order to do that is to start to understand stress a little bit better. Now, one of the things that happens a lot is that stress is almost always talked about in negative terms. Now, today's session isn't about going into all the physiology behind stress too much, and what it actually does within the body. I want to focus on what we can actually do to help with it, because the truth is that stress in itself isn't actually a bad thing. As human beings, we actually need a certain amount of stress, and a certain amount of stress is actually essential for survival and growth. And it's also, and it's easy to forget this, that a certain amount of stress is actually what we need for kind of motivation to keep us interested in stuff and to keep us excited. And physiologically speaking, the responses within our bodies, the things like heart rate, the things like the stress hormones that can rise up when we are feeling stressed. If you take the emotion of anxiety and the emotion of excitement, the physiological responses are pretty much identical. It's our interpretation of those feelings sometimes that makes the difference. And we actually get problems as humans when there are either too many sources of stress, so they stack up one on top of the other, or the period of time that we're exposed to stress goes on too long. Because we're actually very well designed to cope with large amounts of stress and large amounts of pressure, but only for short periods of time. And it's when stress starts to impact our mental health is when we have these chronic levels of stress. It's when you have stress that's almost seemingly never ending, that's there all the time in multiple layers, much like we've all been experiencing over the last year or so for a number of reasons. And it's those kind of medium to high levels of stress that long term are really dangerous, both for our physical and our mental health. So I guess what I'm saying is that trying to get rid of stress completely, because people talk about that a lot, it isn't actually possible, and it wouldn't actually be a very good thing. It would make for a very boring life. If we refer to the graph on the screen for a moment, I think the skill is about learning how to manage stress to try and keep it as much as possible within that middle area, kind of like a sweet spot, if you like. And if we can try and keep it there through raising our awareness of it and our response to it, most of the time we can then be safe in the knowledge that when necessary, because it will be sometimes, we can move towards the outer regions just for a short period of time, whether that's the more stress or the less stress end of the scale. Okay, next analogy I want to share with you when it comes to stress is this bucket that you can see on the screen. I really like this analogy because it's so simple. And as you can see, what we've got here is that number one is like our water level. So that's all the things that we mentioned earlier that might stress us out. Might be more than 4, admittedly, but you get the idea. Number 2. So number 2 is holes in the bucket. So it's where water can spill out and where it kind of leaks away, if you like. And there are coping strategies, or there are habits that we have that help us lower stress levels, help us deal with stress. And then number 3 is overflowing water. So that's come over the top of the bucket, and that's the symptoms of excessive stress. So what we're saying is that the water level within the bucket, that is our stress level. And when that overflows, when our capacity is breached, that's when we experience some of those symptoms that we discussed earlier. So this analogy, I think, makes it very, very clear and easy to see that if we have too many number 1s, or we're not doing number 2s very effectively, we're going to get more 3s. Give me a yes or no if that makes sense. Brilliant, thank you. Yes, good. Okay, so let's dive into this in a bit more detail then. So I think a key consideration for this, however, is that some of the things, some of our number 1s on that list, all the things that stress us out or that cause us to experience these stressful symptoms, some of them are almost like fixed aspects of life, or certainly more fixed than others. Like you'd like to think maybe husband or wife might fall into that category. Whereas some of them are more variable, and they might be subject to different circumstances or different interpretations, I suppose. But I guess the thing is about thinking about the ones that are probably not going to move. So thinking about family, thinking about work, children, all those type of things. They're probably not going to suddenly disappear. So we've got 2 choices. We can either, to help manage that, change our perspective on them a little bit, or we can add in more and some better coping strategies in order to bring our overall stress level down. Another thing that could contribute in a large way to the number 1s are these things that are beyond our control. So the prime example at the moment, of course, is this whole COVID situation that we've had over the last year. And people have been affected in different ways and to different extents, as we know, but it's been there for everybody in some way. So that's been quite a significant number 1 in everybody's stress bucket for the last year or so. And actually, with so much of that being beyond our control, that's one of the major reasons why right now, what we're hearing from our clients, from people we know, is that when it comes to stress and mental health, people are in a tough place, and these stress buckets are overflowing right now. So what we're going to do now in the next part of the workshop is we're going to show you something that we do with clients to work on these number 2s, these coping strategies. That sounds wrong, doesn't it? Working on these number 2s. And some of the strategies, some of the tactics that we use within our 30-day program and within our M12 coaching program as well. Now, I will emphasize they're not magic. They're not tricks. They're not kind of, you know, quick fixes that you just do this and suddenly everything's going to change. Because the thing is that we already have within us built-in ways and built-in mechanisms to deal with stress, both physically and mentally, that the majority of the time it's easy to forget that, quite frankly, and we're not utilizing them as well as we could. And at Motus, these things are what we call the fundamentals. So you can see on the slide in front of you, we have 3 fundamentals for health and well-being. You can put the words physical and mental in front of that if you want, because in this scenario, they are one and the same. So the 3 fundamentals are nutrition, movement, and sleep. And I think we've seen comments from a few people already mentioning those things. So it's good that we're already on the same page here. So what I'm going to do over the next 3 slides is we're going to talk through some ideas for how we can use these fundamentals to affect that equation in the bucket. So firstly, let's tackle nutrition. So if you look down the column on the left-hand side, the red one, here are a few things that we all do sometimes, and sometimes particularly when we're stressed, subconsciously, that in actual fact add to our stress levels. They add to the demands on our body. So we're adding in extra number 1s into that bucket that's already full to the brim. However, we can just make some small changes, some small tweaks, some slightly different decisions. And there are some examples over on the right-hand side of the screen, on the green. And not only do they remove the number 1s from your bucket, they become number 2s. So it's like you get double benefit. Can anybody come up with, just very quickly, some more ideas for things that we could put in the green column? What could we do in terms of nutrition to help with our stress levels? What different decisions could we make? Who's got some ideas? Cut down on sugar, good one, Mimi. Sugar is definitely a stressor to the body. Earlier evening meal, sit down and plan meals. Planning, yeah, great one. Brilliant. Another thing I could add in there, I guess, as well, is thinking about eating healthy fats. Because actually, when our body is stressed, our demand for healthy fats goes up. No alcohol, cut down on sugary snacks, drink more water. Brilliant. Okay, plenty of sleep. Yeah. Excellent. There are loads and loads and loads of things we can do. And as I say, changes like this, it's kind of double benefit because we're taking away the number 1 and adding the number 2. And overall, that means the level in our bucket is going to go down. And that means we've got some spare capacity for those times when the proverbial hits the fan, as it inevitably will. Okay, let's think about movement now. So same thing here. So we've got some of the things in the red on the left-hand side. Yeah, cut down on sugary drinks. Thanks, Karen. Some of the things that can cause more stress to our body when it comes to movement or not moving, but then equally over-exercising. And for some people, actually over-exercising is a stress response. And that, of course, adds more stress to the body as well. A lot of us are spending more time sitting down in front of the screens. That causes stress to the body as well. So let's shift ourselves over into the green column again on the right hand side, and little things that we can do. Little things that would count as number 2. So we've got in that column, we've got daily movement. We've got trying to stand up every hour or so if you're at the desk all day. Having some form of structured exercise planned in. Trying to get outside, definitely. And then perhaps adding in some stretching. I think it's important to note here that we're not suggesting anything drastic or extreme when it comes to exercise and movement. We know if you're already feeling like you're working at capacity, to suggest adding in, oh, you just need to go running every morning, is not necessarily appealing or realistic for everybody. So has anyone got any more suggestions for things that they could do when it comes to movement or exercise that would add into that green column and that would count as a number 2 when it comes to the bucket? Make sure it's fun. Yeah. What else? Exercise with friends. Use a fitness app or phone to set reminders. Virtually, of course. Yeah, of course, Ollie. Yeah, no exercising with friends in groups until the 12th of April, possibly, maybe. Move around the office more. Brilliant. Loads of ideas again. Okay, right. Let's move on to sleep, the third of our fundamentals. So sleep is a huge one. Logging your movements. Yeah, great idea, Michelle. It's often overlooked, sleep. And isn't it interesting how the more stressed we are, the more need we have for sleep, often the less sleep we get, either because we're doing other things and reducing the opportunity that we have for sleep, or because our sleep gets affected in some way. Either we struggle getting to sleep, or we wake up and can't get back to sleep, and those type of things. And that's why actually it's even more important to think about what other small improvements could we make that's going to affect both the quality and the quantity of our sleep. So in the red on the left, again, we've got too much caffeine. We've got a little pre-bed nightcap. Might help us get to sleep. It doesn't help our sleep quality overall. Using technology in bed or before bed in the hour or two. Eating too late, meaning our bodies are still kind of trying to digest our food. And I guess generally staying up later than we need to. Often we might say to ourselves, or we might hear clients say that we feel like we need some decompression time. And I get that totally, but it's trying to strike that balance between providing that without impacting your sleep opportunity too much. Because if we do that, the danger is that it's actually going to make our stress levels rise even more. So over into the green, things we can do. So 15 minutes is usually what we recommend in terms of trying to get to bed earlier. 15 minutes is achievable for pretty much everybody. But it adds up to, I always forget this, what does it add up to? It adds up to an extra night of sleep every month. And I think that sounds like quite a good thing. Reading before bed. So can we substitute like scrolling on our phones or watching TV or whatever? Can we substitute that for reading? And the way that will impact sleep quality is it helps our body wind down and get into that kind of dreamlike state. So you get better quality sleep, even if it's not actually anymore. Can we try and make sure that we're eating at least 2 hours before we go to sleep, so our bodies have had time to digest that food properly? Can we limit technology before bed somehow? Can we put together some type of relaxing bedtime routine to help us wind down? And another one, can we implement a consistent wake-up time? That can really have a massive effect on sleep. Our body is all about rhythm. So if we can start the day with a consistent wake-up time, that will actually help us get to sleep and sleep better the following night. Anyone else got any top tips for improving sleep quantity or quantity? What could you do? What have you tried? What could you share with other people on the group? Keep the room cool. I did hear this morning, actually, again, slight aside here, about a mattress topper that is both heated and cooled, and you can control different sides of the bed separately. That's quite interesting. I'll have to try that. Keep the room dark. Yeah, brilliant. Decaf in the afternoon. Try and read before bed. Brilliant. Yeah, lots of things there. Okay, so in all these areas we've listed just a few things, but if we spent even more time thinking about it and looking at it, there are many more. And one thing I'm really keen to get across to you guys today is about the power, when it comes to managing stress and mental health, of small habitual changes, which again is very much the philosophy of our coaching programs. And that remembering that those small habitual changes and their combined effect is really, really significant and really, really powerful. And I know perhaps that at this point, some of you might be thinking, well, you know, I know lots of these things already, but I just can't seem to make it happen at the moment, often because we're feeling stress. Completely understand. We work with clients who tell us this on a regular basis. And if that does sound like you, then this really is what our coaching programs are all about. So what I'd like to do now, as I mentioned earlier, is give you the opportunity to book a free strategy call with one of the team. If you'd like to do this, there's a link that we're just going to put in the chat for you right now, so you can get yourself booked in. The purpose of the call is all about discussing your specific needs, because we're all individual and we all have slightly different needs and slightly different lifestyles that advice needs to be tailored towards. So the purpose of that call is to do just that, and we will make sure that you go away with a minimum of one personalized action, one thing that you can do within your lifestyle that's going to make a big impact improving your health. And we can start to talk about how that change is going to add up over time, and decide together whether you might be a good fit for our 30-day program, whether it's likely to work for you or not. So please do book in. It's free. And the other thing I should mention is that if for whatever reason we're not the right people to help you, then there is probably someone within our network who we know who can. So we will absolutely have no problem in referring you to the right person if it's not us. Okay, so we are coming towards the end of the main bit of the content now, but before we finish, it's back over to you again. So what I'd like you to do now, again, thinking back to these three fundamental areas: we've got nutrition, sleep, and we've got movement or exercise. Is in the chat. We're going to go with nutrition first of all. I want you to put down one thing that you can start doing this week, so start doing soon, so it can start to have an impact, that for you personally can be changing from a 1, something that's adding to the stress, to a 2. So far away. Let's come up with as many ideas as possible. Less sugar, more veg. Mimi, you pop in the chat. What do you mean by sugar? Improve meal planning. Cutting down on snacks. Eat more protein. planning and logging, including looking at nutritional values. Brilliant. Some great ideas coming in. Can we be even more specific now? So when we say less sugar from chocolate, there we go, chocolate and cakes maybe. Brilliant. So it's switching out those for more veg. What type of veg? What type of veg do you like? When we say improve meal planning, what specifically about a meal planning could we improve? Anna, when we say eat more protein, is that at a particular meal? Including more green foods, chocolate and cakes. The more specific you can be when coming up with your plans, the better. So yeah, think if we're thinking about eating more protein, which meal, what type of protein will you eat? At snack time, looking into macros, brilliant, getting into detail. Fantastic, there's so many good ideas coming in. And do steal each other's ideas, that's part of what this is for. Right, so let's move on to sleep. Set time to plan, don't deviate. Yes, love it. Let's move on to sleep then. So same thing again, post in the chat for us. One thing where you're going to move from a number 1 to a number 2 when it comes to your sleep. No scrolling at night. Get up on time, so fixed, yeah. What time? Mimi, when you say no scrolling at night, what's the cutoff time? 8 AM. What else? What else could we do for sleep? 9 PM, brilliant. Switch my phone for my book at 9:30, brilliant. Aim to go to bed 30 minutes earlier to allow myself to relax. Brilliant. What time, Michelle? (8:30). Excellent, good. We've got some real specifics coming in there. Let's move on to movement finally. So again, exactly the same question. What can you do to move from a 1 to a 2 when it comes to movement? I need to move more before bed. I sit down after dinner and then nap. For some reason, it's tired. Stop that. Yeah, good plan. Yeah. So when you say move, what specifically are you going to do, Andrea? This week I've started to work out 30 minutes after waking up. Brilliant. Walk now, the nights are getting lighter. Yeah, it's making a big difference. How long will you walk for? Start yoga again. Get outside each day. Yeah. Yoga, is that an online class, Mimi, or just something you follow on YouTube, or what? 30 minutes. Brilliant, good. Loads of ideas. Again, borrow other people's. Try and do a 4-minute walk with my little girl in pushchair. 40 minutes. Yeah, like 4 minutes. It's hardly worth getting her in a pushchair for that, is it? Brilliant. Loads of ideas. Loads of things that we can do. Okay. So when we start applying all of these things, all of these fundamentals, all of these small changes on a regular basis, when we start forming new habits, the other amazing thing that happens, and this is, I think, the biggest thing when it comes to protecting our mental health, is that it actually gives us a bigger bucket, which is a strange expression. But what that actually means is less stress, because we've moved things from a 1 to a 2. It means we've got more capacity to deal with whatever stress we then have left and whatever other stress comes up. And it then means we've got spare capacity we've got like a safety net. So we're not redlining, we're not on the limit all the time, we're not on that point of our stress levels overflowing, and those symptoms that, quite frankly, some of them are not very good, are they? We're not very proud of. They won't come up as much. And that is what protects our mental health and our physical health in the long term. Right, next slide. We're just going to summarize those things again. So key points, take away from the session today, and thank you, by the way, for contributing so much. This session really wouldn't work without that. Is don't add to your number ones unwittingly. We're stressed enough already. There's enough stress out there. There's enough things causing us problems, enough people causing us problems, enough stuff going on. Let's not add to that ourselves as well. And when we're thinking about moving things from number one to number two, let's think about how to build those fundamental habits. The benefit being they'll also affect every area of your life positively. And by doing that, we end up with a bigger bucket, a bigger capacity and spare capacity to deal with whatever life throws at us. And ultimately, that is how we protect our mental health and our physical health. Okay, so thank you again, everybody. That's what concludes the main part of the session today. So we've got about 10 minutes left for any questions that you have. So do feel free to type away in the chat now. And we'll also make sure, I think we had a few questions from people who couldn't make it that we've got. So we'll cover some of those as well. But do type away. So it can be anything to do with what we covered today, or anything else that you've got a burning question to do when it comes to health, fitness, nutrition, well-being, tips on keeping mental focus and regaining a positive attitude, relieve stress, sleep better, help manage stress at work. I'm good at starting ideas but struggle to keep going after a few weeks. Okay, let's just take those in turn. Let me just make a note. So number one, tips on keeping mental focus and regaining a positive attitude. I think for me personally and within our clients, one of the top tips for keeping mental focus is using things to track. And I would suggest two types of tracking. Again, this is what we do within M12. So one would be tracking some kind of stats. So whether that's sleep, whether that's activity levels, or something that's very measurable. And then secondly, is tracking habits. So whether you've done a certain habit or not. And the benefit of doing that is that it helps you see progress, and it helps you see achievement in having executed that habit. Having some kind of way of displaying that, whether it's through a wearable, or whether it's keeping track in a diary or something like that, so you have a visual reminder all the time. I think that's very helpful in terms of building momentum and kind of keeping that positive attitude. Because sometimes if you think, oh, I'm not feeling great, this isn't working very well, if you look back at what you've done, it's like, oh, actually, that's pretty good. Prime example of this, I was talking to a client in a consultation yesterday, and one of his objectives that he set out back in the beginning of February was around running. Well, he hadn't done very much running because where he lives had been covered in snow and ice for 3 weeks of the last 4, so he actually couldn't run. So he came on the call very, very down on himself about having not done his running. But we looked through what he had done, and actually, in terms of overall number of exercise sessions, he'd still exceeded what he set out to do. So that's sort of why I think tracking can be very, very valuable. let's move on. How can I reduce anxiety caused by stress, mainly in my job? I can't really give it my job yet. No. What in particular about the job, don't mind me asking, personal question, is it that causes the stress? I would ask Andrea. Thank you, Michelle, by the way. Okay, I'll start to answer Andrew's question there anyway. So, reduced anxiety caused by stress, mainly in my job. One of the things, again, I would start with, Andrea, is thinking about your job specifically. What aspects of it, pressure, timescales, demanding people, constant barrage of email, phone calls, workload. There we go, there's a list. I'm just going to suggest having a list of all the kind of various aspects of it. That's a short list. Okay, so there's more, presumably. I would take those and then I'd kind of put them into different categories on ones that you cannot do anything about, ones that that you could, by having a conversation with somebody about, potentially affect. And what's the last one on there? And cause workload. And then I would make sure, because I say, if when it comes to our work, if some of the things are beyond our control, what can you do before, after, during, in breaks, in terms of adding more number 2 type activities to rebalance? It sounds like there's lots of number 1s, so we need more number 2s. And if what we're saying is in those work hours, there may not be that much that you can do about it. What can you do outside of those hours to give you more capacity so that it affects you less? I hope that helps. What else have we got there questions wise? Mental focus, relieving stress to sleep better. Hopefully we've covered quite a few of the sleep based things, and relieving stress to sleep better. All those habits we discussed earlier, I would say, would be the start point. Pressure, time, yeah, that one. I think another kind of more general point is that often when we get in this feeling of being stressed, it can feel like too much effort to even do anything at all, or it feels like so much is wrong, or there's so many number 1s that even that, the slightest change in the right direction is just going to be a drop in the ocean. It's not going to make much difference. What I would say there is 2 things: is do start very, very small and very, very simple when it comes to more number 2 type activities, but also remember that it's not just the individual kind of small action or activity on its own, it's the power of those things compounding over time. And if it's something, for example, that you can do several times a day, that means you're going to do it 20 plus times a week. And that compounding effect very, very quickly, especially imagine if you could pick one from those 3 fundamentals, that could then be, just trying to do maths in my head, 63 extra number 2 type activities. Times that by 2, so if they take away a number 1 and add a number 2, the net effect is then what? 1, 2, 6 in a scale for stress that I've just made up. That's significant, and that's just in a week. So imagine what that could be after a month, or after 3 months. Okay, right. I think we've covered everything now. So we will have to wrap up now due to time. Thank you very, very much for joining, and thank you to all of those who are watching on the recording. And I hope you've taken away something useful from the session, or if just venting and putting down your stresses in the chat has been helpful, then that's good too. Just a final reminder to book in your strategy call with one of the team. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks again, and enjoy the rest of your day.